Yo, 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 welcome to, I don't even know what the show is called. This is just a little break-in show. More or less, Connor was in Altoona this weekend. We all know Paul Skenes was starting, and that was big news. So, Connor, you were there to actually cover it.
Yep.
And, you thought, like, let's hop on and have a little bit of a show here and talk about Paul Skenes and more that happened in Altoona. So I guess, first off, let's just talk about your experience for the weekend. Like, it was sold out. It was a big crowd on Friday. The Belgian media was in town.
Yeah, no, that was weird. There were about like 4,000 something people there on Friday. It was a decent turnout. But yeah, no, there was a. I didn't meet them, but there was apparently somewhere in the ballpark a media team from Belgium who was covering a massive Curves fan who's from somewhere in Belgium. I don't remember, but that's what they were there for.
Interesting.
It certainly was.
But either way, it was a big turnout. Again, like Friday was a decent turnout, obviously, but then Saturday was the big day. That was Paul Skenes Day, record-breaking crowd. Again, like just tell us a little bit just behind the scenes about your weekend.
Yeah, so I haven't covered many games, but I don't have it. Saturday was crazy. I do not have another parallel for Saturday other than Strasbourg. And Strasbourg's debut was obviously a whole like another level because I mean ESPN was there, but that was also in Altoona, and Cole didn't draw a crowd like that. Tyon didn't draw a crowd like that. Pedro didn't draw a crowd like that. Henry Davis didn't draw a crowd like that. So they smashed their attendance record, man. It was number one by almost 1,000. I think the official number was like 10,164, and it beat out like a previous a double header attendance number that they had set in like 2003 of like 9,000 something.
Interesting.
I think it was 9,255.
So yeah, like you're saying, basically like a whole 1,000. That's insane.
Yeah, no, it was.
How much purple and gold was in the stands also?
Surprisingly little, but I did see a few. There was an Air Force military band on hand. They really good rendition of the national anthem, obviously because it's the Air Force military band. But yeah, they pulled out all the stops.
Cool. Well, let's get into it, Paul Skenes. And actually, I guess before we really talk about Paul, because you talk about the commotion and everything, I heard there was top-notch security because word is Bucko Mike tried to break in and get the Livy done.
Oh my God, are we really doing this now?
We can bypass it. Let's talk about
Paul.
No.
We'll talk about it. So, around the 5th or 6th inning, there was a gathering of young hooligans, about 20 of them, who quickly gathered, and they were running up the steps of the main concourse, and we saw them from the press box, like just sprinting up the tunnel, like sprinting up towards because the Curve PNG field only has like 2 levels. There's no like 3rd floor and like a exclusive club level or anything like that. So to get to the press box, it's just normal fans can walk around the entrance to the press box. It's just they can't get in normally. And so they were headed up towards the right field entrance to that tunnel. And so immediately everybody in the press box saw that, and we went, oh my God. because where Paul Skenes' girlfriend was, I think the only way to get to that spot was going through the doors to the press box.
Oh,
Yes.
so I can just imagine the look on all of your faces.
So we were literally holding the doors in case they got past like the first wave of security.
That's funny.
So
And
it
I
was
guess like I
like
kind of want to talk about this too, just to a
me and
degree, because
Justice De Los Santos and I were literally holding the doors.
well, I guess again, like that's just what like Paul Skeens made. Like you're talking about, like Strasburg was the one you compare it to. Cole didn't have this, Town didn't have it, but like Skeens, Strasburg had like the entire year being on ESPN in college. I mean, everyone had eyes on him, where Skeens didn't. Skeens kind of got to that point later on in the year, but it wasn't like, hey, you got to watch this guy throw 102
Right.
miles an hour, and every start was on like Strasburg. But like what Skeens does have, the other guys don't talk about, is like this star power quality. Again, like he
Oh
has
my
been that national
god.
attention, and now like he's got the girlfriend that I see on my TV in every MLB commercial break. So Pirates, I don't know what it is. I mean, Cole Tucker first, now Paul Skeens. They just have star power quality. Anyways,
Go to the
Paul
Gazette if
takes
you want further coverage on Livy Dune, man.
Paul takes the mound. We had the NS9 game. They talked about what we wanted to see. Certainly wasn't the best outcome you had wanted, but talk to us about it.
So they let media people get down behind home plate, like field level, for pictures and stuff. So that's where I spent the first inning. I planned on spending the first inning there, and then heading back up once the bottom of the first started, and to get back in time for the top of the second. Because anybody who's been to Altoona knows that the the elevator to get to the upper levels is the world's slowest elevator. So you have to get there early if you want to get there on time. But that was the plan. So I was right to I was in section 111 for Paul's first inning. Um, he was kind of all over the place. I think he was trying to pitch a little too much. Um, he avoided barrels, but I mean, two singles, two walks, the double. I mean, you'll get banged around at any level if you're missing your spots that badly. Um, and it wasn't that they were like he was missing the zone badly, but he was missing his spots badly, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, the stuff was still good because it's Paul Skeens. Of course, the stuff is going to be good. It's never not good. Um, but he was missing pretty badly with the fastball. I thought he located his breaking pitches a little better, but he was still missing a little bit with that. He was just trying to dot the corners too much. When I mean, in reality, like these are double A hitters. You should be attacking them a little more. You know, more often than not, you can get away with 102. Middle up to a double A hitter.
Mm-hmm. Which is something he's shown. Again, like we talked about a little bit, the quality of hitters he's faced to this point is well below his level. I mean, he's in the complex league, and then he's in low A. Once you get to maybe Greensboro high, that's when you're probably comparable to the SEC. So this is obviously, someone brought in the chat too. This is probably the best talent wise, like lineup he's faced in his career.
Yeah, no, these are probably the most skilled hitters he's ever faced.
Right.
Like the maybe not on an individual level, but on a complete like 1 through 9, that lineup was probably the most skilled lineup. It certainly has the most experience of any lineup he's ever played.
Sure. So, again, like my takeaway from it was it's not doom and gloom. It's not, oh my God, this guy's a bust.
No,
This is the best lineup he's faced.
if you
Like he
thought
said,
Paul
like
Skeens was never going to have a bad outing in his professional career, I don't know what to tell you. And the reality, I mean, he talked about this because he was like, I think that's why he was trying to pitch as opposed to just like filling the zone and getting work in, which is really what this is. Um, it's I talked to him a little bit about how like being on such a strict pitch count limit, such a strict innings limit changes his mindset. And it was, knowing that you're not going to face, a second or even a third or even a second time through the order, that changes how you approach it. I know he has experience. He was Air Force's closer. So it's not like that experience is foreign to him, but in terms of this particular situation, it was more like I'm going to throw all of my pitches. I'm going to, you know, try to learn as much as I can. And I think I don't know what the term for this would be. Flustered is the right term because he wasn't flustered. It was just like I think that mindset got him pitching differently than he usually did. He was trying to be perfect and trying to he was trying to be perfect rather than be the pitcher that he is.
Gotcha. That kind of makes sense. And I guess I didn't really think about that.
Usually you want people to be pitchers over throwers, but I think in that situation it would have been better for him to be more of a thrower.
Well, I think part of it too is, I mean, his stuff is so good that it'll, like you're saying, like it'll play. He can fill up the zone, and his stuff is just so good that batters are just naturally probably going to miss. But when you're
Right.
not hitting your spots and you're not filling the zone, and you're allowing walks to happen and such, something like this happens. When you're trying to hit that spot, I definitely can understand where you're coming from. But I guess also what I'm saying here is I never thought too deeply about that, but it makes sense. He's on a limited pitch count. His mindset is going to be different. He's not going out
Yeah,
there
no,
like a normal
it's not
start.
a starter mindset, especially when
Right.
he's like just trying to get work in at his first time at a professional level. He's gonna want to throw all of his pitches. He's gonna want to try to learn, what works, what doesn't against hitters that are at a skill level that he has never faced before.
And so I guess that leads to my next point too, is that kind of makes sense too, because I don't think, and like us, like of course we jokingly say bust, right? But I don't think we should be looking at this as a results based
No,
season
this isn't
for him,
a
but a
results
work
thing for
based.
him.
Yeah, like
It's
this is
just
almost like spring training heading into the off season for him.
that's pretty much exactly what it is because John Baker was there Saturday. I didn't expect him to be available to the media. My impression is that he was going to be there with family. For those who don't know, John Baker is the head of player development, and what John said was that you have to be cautious with Paul, and the plan is to get acclimated to the professional level. That's what this is, and the reason why he's at Double A is because that needs to be he needs to get acclimated to a professional level that's openly challenging him, and
Right.
that's not going to happen at the FCL. That's not going to happen at Bradenton. It's not going to happen at Greensboro. Double A is where he needs to be right now. It's where he can best get acclimated to the professional level that is openly challenging him, as they said.
So that's a good point to bring up this next question, because we've been guessing. You hear Charrington say things. So is it going to be Altoona basically for the rest of the year for him?
For at least the rest of the curve season. I asked John Baker about this. I asked Krabby about this. Calix Crab, he's the curve manager. And both of them said similar things. I think the exact quote from John Baker was, "It would be a fair expectation for him to remain with the curve through the rest of their season." Now, does that mean that he's not going to make his way to Indianapolis? I don't know because, excuse me, Indianapolis season ends about 1 week after the curve season does. And Indianapolis season, I know he's not going to pitch in the major leagues. He's not.
Right.
He's not going to be on the 40-man roster. But at the end of the year, if they could find a way to like some 40-man trickery, some taxi squad trickery where they could get him in uniform and with the team, I could see it happening. But he's not going to pitch, and he's not going to be on the 40-man roster.
Right. But so that was like my thought too, is I would love to see him make like his final outing in Indianapolis. So more or less what you're saying is it's pretty much
You'll see.
done deal that he's going to be
Yeah,
in Altoona at the end of their season. But
Right.
there is still that possibility that he could make maybe one more start in Indianapolis
I
during
think
their
so.
season.
It just depends on what his pitch count total is by that
Right.
point. Um, Although I assume that's going to be kept in such strict limits that that's not going to be any kind of worry place that they would be with that. Um, Same thing with the innings. Um, I know they've explicitly stated 20, but I wouldn't be surprised if it were less than that total. Like I wouldn't
Yeah.
be surprised if it was like somewhere around 12 to 15
Oh, okay.
when
So
it's all said
maybe
and
even
done.
substantially lower. Yeah, because I did point, like, I did notice when Charrington said that, he said under 20. So he didn't necessarily say 20, like it's going to be at 20. They say under, but again, is that 10? Is that 15? Is that 20? So you're thinking maybe about
Yeah, 12
15-ish,
to
maybe as a
15.
real cap.
Well, it's not as a real cap. I don't think they'd be uncomfortable going higher than that, but just like realistically with how far they've been letting him go into games and how many games that are left.
Right.
Because
With
he's
them also
pitched,
saying he's not going to be stretched out.
because he's right, because he's pitched what, 4.2 innings now?
Yes.
Yeah. So there's he has like 4 remaining starts by schedule alone, with the curve. If he is going to finish the season with them, finish their season with them. So if you like math that out, that's like 8. So that's like 12. Assuming they let him go 2 and he does pitch 2. So
Mhm.
that's 12 innings. And then you add in a start in Indianapolis if he does go there, and that's like, 14, 15. So realistically, I don't see him getting to that 20 number. They're going to be working well within those parameters.
Sounds good. All right, cool. So obviously you had the post with him. Anything, any comments he said, anything that you take away from that?
Um, yeah, he's really cerebral. The comparisons I got to him a lot were Anthony Solometo, who's a guy I think we're going to talk about later. Um, but just in terms of another quote from John Baker, it's John Baker was talking about how unusual it was to see a guy who is as uniquely self-aware as Paul is. That when he was introduced to the organization right off the bat, it was, here's what I want to work on, here's what I'm going to do. So they were really impressed with that. And Paul said it in the post game. It wasn't like an obstacle to overcome as much as it was just like a bad outing.
Gotcha.
Right? It wasn't that's the term. It wasn't adversity. That was the specific quote. It wasn't adversity. It was a bad outing. So I mean, Paul was open about this. Bad outing. 2 walks will kill you. He said he did a decent job avoiding the barrels, which he did.
Yeah.
Just, I mean, standard stuff coming off him an outing like the one that he had.
Cool. Cool. So yeah, again, it wasn't the outing that you wanted to see.
No.
But I always look at outings like this too. Like, I mean, you want these. You said it wasn't adversity. That's actually a word and term I used. Like, you want to have some adversity. I mean, he's just gone through and just dominated LSU. Like, just dominated. Comes in here, he's in the, you mentioned the complex league. He's in Bradenton, just dominates ones. So like, I wouldn't mind to see him have a struggle because, again, to me, how I feel, you learn best through struggles. If he's just coming in here and he's mowing down everyone, and then, hey, somehow or another, maybe he starts day one for the Pirates, or he doesn't whenever he makes his debut. You don't want his like very first struggle maybe coming in the major leagues. So that's why, like, I always kind of look at this as an opportunity and like take a positive out of this. Like, he had a struggle and it was here.
Yeah, again, if you expected Paul Skenes to never have a bad outing in his professional career, you haven't been watching this sport very long.
It's not how it works. He needs
Yeah,
to be
no,
perfect.
it's just not how it works.
Right.
And
All right.
it's better if you get those out of the way now, even though these outings don't really matter. But it's better that you learn from these and learn what you need to do, because the main takeaway from this outing was that you need to be a little more of a thrower. That's a bad way to put it, but at this level, at the double A level, you know, your stuff can dominate people still here. You know,
For sure.
nobody at the double A level has this kind of stuff. Nobody
As
at
we
the double A
saw,
level who's starting has this kind of velocity
yeah.
consistently. Not that I can
And
think of.
and I was gonna say, as we saw by the pitcher who replaced him, there was a clear difference in the two.
There was a clear difference. The thing that really stood out to me from watching him in person is just the sound of his fastball hitting Carter Binns' glove was different. It was that same head turning kind of different that O'Neal Cruz taking batting practice is. You know, because the first time I heard O'Neal Cruz hit a baseball, it was I wasn't looking, and my head was just on a swivel because it was just like, who the hell? It's that kind of sound.
Good stuff. So Paul Skenes talked about awesome stuff. Now, again, you were there. You said you want to talk about Anthony Solometo. You had a chance to
Yeah,
talk with him as well.
yeah. No, I was really impressed with him. He started Friday. Um, really funky delivery. Seeing it in person is a little different than like seeing it on film because you get like a unique angle on it. Lefties are just so uncomfortable against him, and he has such a good feel for pitching. The velocity was a little lower today. I know he's added a bit to that. He's thrown more than double the innings that he did last year. I think it's fair to say he's getting a little tired. He's getting a little worn down. Um, so there's some stretching out to do there, and I think this year was a good step to that. Um, but the adding velocity thing was huge for him. I think it was a huge part of his success this year, and I think
Yeah, that was certainly a positive.
his and I think his self evaluation abilities are a big part of how he added velocity. Because he did go to tread, and they worked with him, and you know we we make the joke about a lot of pirates going to tread, but it is what it is. Um, I'm
Oscar
trying to
Maroon, the
I'm
the
trying
mass
to think of a
triage
way I
service.
can say this that won't get me in trouble. So I won't say it.
Okay,
But
fair enough.
there is
Look at you.
there is a little more to that. But I was just really impressed with him. I came away from this visit more impressed with Anthony Solometo than I thought I would be. Just talking to him and talking about how much he knows about pitching, because he's the youngest pitcher in the Eastern League right now.
And I don't think we give enough credit. And I know we've talked to some degree about this, but like I'm just so impressed that he's 20 years old and he's already in double A. And for all the people that talk about, the Pirates and Charrington and oh great, we'll never see him for 6 more years in the majors. Like Anthony Solometo, he's fast tracking. He's 20 years old and he's put in almost half of a season in Altoona already.
Yep. And I mean, part of that is the maturity, right? Because a lot of what goes into these guys' development is mental. They have like half of their coaching budget at High A Greensboro is mental skills coaches. They have
Mm,
like five different mental skills coaches in Greensboro. So
interesting.
it's a huge part of this. And he is far and away the most, mature. He's so much more mature than I expected him to be. And I know that's been the rep on him, and I know, obviously the command is really good. The delivery's funky, but man, just his attitude towards it. Because I was talking to Crab after Solometo pitched, and he was because Solometo was just absolutely cruising. Had only allowed like I think one base runner before the fifth inning, and then the fifth inning he went and he got 2 outs, and then he gave up a walk, which is really rare for him. Only I think after that performance, I think it was only like 11 walks total in Double A so far in 48 innings, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I
I
was
can look
talking to
that up.
Crab, and he gave up the walk, and then he gave up the homer, and then he gave up another walk, and then they came out for a mound visit, and he made a throwing error on the pickoff attempt, and then he struck out the next batter. So he did give up the lead. It was a tie game by that point, but it was only 2 runs. So he went 5 innings, 2 runs. I was talking to Crab after the game. He was like, when Solometo came back into the dugout, he immediately referenced the walk. He immediately was like, "This is what I need to improve on," and he had a good attitude about it.
That's good. And the funny thing is that's really his strong point. To your point here, yeah, to fact check you. No, it is 13. It's 13 walks he has in
Okay,
43.2 innings in Double A
I was off by
compared to
2.
45 strikeouts. Yeah, but like you said, I mean that's pretty much his calling card too, like his control. Awesome. So with Anthony, something I kind of want to ask you about. I don't know if you brought this up or whatnot. Again, we've seen how much he just dominated high A, goes to Altoona, and immediately just starts dominating Altoona. He's had some struggles recently. He
He
went on the
has.
developmental list, right?
Well, I think that was to manage his innings because
Well, that's
again
what I'm
he's
alluding to here.
yeah he is because his velocity was a little down on Friday night. And that was an Akron lineup with a lot of lefties, and all of them looked uncomfortable, but the velocity wasn't quite there.
Okay.
So I think he is getting a little tired. The way that the development list stuff works is that he goes on the development list to, get him the rest, and then he comes back out, and then they set like a 3 inning pitch limit, and then they, 3 innings, then 5 innings, then back to the development list. Just to make sure he is getting the work in, but also to manage those because you can't just sit a guy for a month.
Right. Right. Well, I mean, which is essentially what Paul Skenes did. That's why he's where he's at right now. Also, like you're not just going to put him in and pitch 5 innings, regardless of the innings he's had this year to lead up to it.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, right to your point. So he had 47.2 innings pitched all of last year. Right now he has topped 100. So with again, like the struggles he started to have, do you know, or there may be just some concerns of it just being more or less like just work usage,
Yeah,
right?
just
Opposed to
the work
just
usage. I don't think there's anything like really wrong with him. I don't think there is anything wrong with him. I think it's just that he's pitched more than double the innings he has last year, and this is by far the most innings he's ever pitched in his entire life. There's
right.
more mileage on that arm this year than there has been ever, and it's showing. Velocity's a little down. Um, I don't doubt that you could stretch him out to like 150, 160 innings, and he'd be just fine. But I mean, you have to actually stretch him out to get him to that point, and he's not at
Hmm.
that point yet.
Yeah, totally fair. Um, so awesome stuff. And again, like for his Double A numbers, again, for we're talking, it's once again, it's a 20-year-old. Not to compare him to that, but like that's what we always like. I felt like every time we talk about Piguero, it was always preference. Like, and mind you, he's also 19 or he's also 20 years old. Like Piguero was always young for the stage he was at, and like that's the thing with Solometo. Like he has a 4.33 ERA in Double A, which is fine. But like also remember, he's also 20 years old. He's the youngest pitcher there doing it. And right, the recent struggles has happened to get to that number, which is again is probably because of the workload, which is fine. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited about Solometo. I was intrigued. There you
He
go, Doug.
it's
I was
rare to
intrigued with him.
it was rare it's rare to see a guy who is this much of a pitcher at this age. That's different
That's good stuff.
because he's not a thrower. He's a pitcher. And he was a pitcher from the start. They didn't have to teach him to pitch basically. Because with another guy that was drafted that year, Bubba Chandler. Bubba Chandler
Yeah.
has better stuff. He's got 3+ pitches. He's got a high 90s fastball that's just easy velocity. He's got a good slider. He's got a really good changeup, which is really encouraging to see, and one of the reasons why I'm so high on Bubba Chandler. And Anthony Solometo has a changeup that plays both ways too. Pretty decent. But I mean, the reason why I'm so high on Chandler is because he has 3+ pitches. But he's not a pitcher. He's a thrower.
Right. Right.
And that's the reason why Anthony Solometo is in AA and Bubba Chandler isn't. Because if Bubba Chandler ever gets like a single like iota of feel for actually pitching, he's gonna be good. You know, that's a $35 million arm. But teaching a guy how to pitch is really hard.
Right. And that's what I'm coming to. You know, I was definitely intrigued by Solometo, but like this year, what he's done for this entire year, it has to excite you. Like him as a prospect right now, like you have to be excited.
And it's one of the reasons why I was so like ecstatic when they compared Paul Skenes in the intake. They compared meeting Paul Skenes to meeting Anthony Solometo. Because what they said about Anthony Solometo was when he was drafted, I mean, he was like this 18-year-old, and in their intake meeting, he sat down with, I think, John Baker and Hopper. I don't know what Hopper's official title is, but he's pitching development. And so they walked away from that going, is this kid really 18? Did they fudge the birth certificate? Did we get tricked?
I am 18.
Yeah, I am 12. You know, it was that level of maturity.
And that's something that's been talked about with Paul Skenes for a while now. Like, I mean,
yes.
This is, again, like you see that nationally. You don't really get that with Anthony, obviously, as a prospect, an 18-year-old come out of high school. But like you hear all the interviews and people talking about Skenes and his mentality and his professionalism and how much he, you know, takes in this stuff, you know, behind the scenes and studying and all that. Like he's just a baseball nerd. So that's awesome stuff to hear that basically like they're comparing him to Anthony and not like the other way around.
Yeah. Arm health willing, Solometo is going to be a major league pitcher in some capacity. I'm pretty convinced of it. Because he has I would say the most difficult part of this, he's really good at. He's really good at self-evaluation. He's really good at keeping his composure.
Cool.
Because like I said, I mean, teams know how important that stuff is. Because half of the coaches in Greensboro are mental skills coach.
Awesome. Anything else with Anthony you want to talk about?
I think we covered everything there. He's a really good interview, really good kid.
So who else do you want to bring up?
Well, I would love to bring up the person that everybody came to see Saturday. Tsung-Che.
Go ahead. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so Cheng is kind of interesting. He had a very good run in Greensboro, and it was clear that he had earned that promotion. The real question was whether or not the power was real, because it is Greensboro, it is high A. You know, that is a really offensive league, and that's a really offensive park. I think he had 9 home runs in Greensboro, and I think he got promoted early July.
That sounds about right. I'll also look that up.
But the exit velos with him are really good. You know, watching him in person, the ball does jump off the bat. And he's not a big guy.
I was going to say, that's the crazy thing about it to me is what he does do and the power that he does have and the frame that he does it with. He is tiny.
I talked to him. He said 2 of the players that he really looked up to were Francisco Lindor and Jose Altuve.
That makes sense.
It makes sense, right? But he worked this offseason on adding power, and it did translate at Greensboro. It hasn't translated quite yet at Altoona. He had some struggles a little early on there. Mm-hmm. He made some adjustments. And then he went on like a 17-game hitting streak. And that'll help your line. 17 game hitting streak will
Right.
help your line. I think since those adjustments were made, I think he's hitting like 300. I can't give you a specific date on that one, but he talked to me about because he goes up there looking to hit the ball, and he is not afraid to swing big. He took a couple of big hacks while I was there. He didn't play the first game. He did pinch hit, but it was just for a guy who is, was supposedly that contact oriented. I was really shocked by the kinds of swings that he was taking because he was swinging big.
So just some numbers out there. So we did officially get caught up on June 22nd. And like you said, it was certainly some struggles, right? July 23rd is
He
when
struggled hard. He struggled hard for his first 2 weeks.
Oh yeah. He was collecting hits, right? But July 23rd is the day that the hit streak started. And since that time, which is 122 plate appearances, yes, batting .314. A little bit of pop in there, not a whole lot. I mean, he's
the 2 home runs,
448. Like that'll play. But 314, 356, 448 is his last.
And he's genuinely is a shortstop.
Right.
This isn't like a situation where maybe he'll have to move off or the arm isn't really there. No, he's a shortstop. The glove and the arm will absolutely play there. If there's anybody any lesser discussed prospect that I want to be real more than anybody else, it's probably him, because his approach is so unique in this system where just nobody swings at anything. I mean, we saw it today with Leover just taking those 3 pitches, and it's just Cheng is just such a refreshing breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure how well the bat translates to even just AAA. I'm not sure how well it's going to translate to MLB, but hoping.
I think we talked about this with Rodolfo, and clearly that's not going to be the case anymore. But like you need, especially like with a rebuild, like teams, it's easy to draft Paul Skenes to perform, right? But like every rebuild needs some guys that are underheralded, they're kind of the unknown that come out and be part of something. And like I said, like Rodolfo, we thought might have been that person. Obviously he's traded, so it won't. Like you're saying with Cheng, I would love to see that from him also. Like if he can keep climbing, keep performing, and be that guy, it doesn't have to be a star. Like we're not asking to be a star, not even an everyday player, but if he can become part of this, organization in the future, that would be big. And the other thing I want to say too is that you talked about him having a great start this year because of Greensboro. And I want to back up just a little bit. I mean, he was actually put on the map because of the World Baseball Classic also. He was balling out.
Yeah, he was. I forgot about that
too. So like it kind of started there, and then he goes to Greensboro, and you just see like, oh, whoa, hold up. Is this guy legit? So now that he is in Altoona, and as we talked about, like that's real competition. Charrington has said it multiple times. Like if you're already here, you're on the doorstep of going to the majors. To see him performing recently is certainly nice to see.
I don't know if I should make this comp because I'm going to get burned for it.
Oh, then make it. I mean, it's not me. I don't worry about myself.
His game, not the player, his style of game. I think it's very similar to Ha-Seong Kim.
Ooh.
I know he's putting up like a 6-WAR season right now.
Right.
So, put the brakes. I'm not saying that Cheng is going to be a 7-WAR player. I'm not, nowhere, but it's similar. It's a similar style of game. To be fair,
Kim didn't put up a 7-WAR season when he came over to the majors. Like it's taken him some time to get to this level also. But I like that. And I think this too is like he didn't have major pops. Doesn't have major pop, but like I would like to look at that comp more, but I don't hate it. If of course
because Cheng hits the ball
things
hard.
Go right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like the 90. I for the record, that is like the 103rd percentile outcome for Cheng. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying their games are similar. That's all I'm saying. I need before that gets clipped, before that gets thrown back at me.
Oh, this is getting clipped, and that's the title of this video. Connor says.
Yeah, Connor says Tsung-Che Cheng is going to be a 7-war player in 2027.
Yeah, he's not even him. He's Kim. So that's good stuff.
Yeah, no,
So-
I had a great time, man.
It sounds like you did. It sounds like you got a lot of things accomplished as well. It's a productive weekend for you.
There's almost too much to go over. I have like my phone has like an hour of like interviews on it. And I just got so much stuff out of Paul Skenes, and I got so much stuff out of John Baker, because Baker touched on a lot of different things with Henry Davis. Because just to touch on some of that stuff a little bit, I asked John Baker about Henry Davis, and I think somebody asked him about Henry Davis too, about how do you like keep Henry from going all out and hurting himself or doing this and doing that, and they said they'd have to tie him down to a chair.
That sounds about right. Well, cool. Well, Connor, I really appreciate all the feedback, all the talk, discussion. Before we go, again,
I'm whipped.
Keep it to you. Anything else you want to talk?
I know they're working with Priester to add velocity down in AAA. I don't know if Baker talked about it. I have like a vague recollection that he did. But I saw Priester hit like 95 with, I think, the sinker. So that is encouraging. I don't know where he was actually sitting, but he did hit 95. So
let's make that 96.
Yeah, let's
97.
Because for him, I think the velocity is more important than I think maybe anybody other than Rowe. And Rowe is like on the extreme end of the velocity problems. Right? Where I don't think that he can't have a primary pitch like his fastball. Because I don't think the fastball is going to play ever at all at any level. Maybe you could go down to Greensboro and get away with that. Maybe you could go to AA and get away with that. But it's
which is more or less what he's done.
Yeah, which is what he's done. But it's low 90s, it's flat, and he has a tendency to leave it up. I don't think his control is the issue. It's just that pitch, for whatever reason, he's leaving it up in the zone. And professional hitters at the AAA and major league level you can't sneak a flat fastball that's low 90s by them. So I don't know specifically what tweaks they're working with, but it's just like a combination of. I know John Baker said, in terms of Rowe specifically, that it's not the arm. It is, the series of little things that they're doing that are slightly off, and that's why the velocity is down. You lose a mile an hour when you're not pushing off the mound as hard. Maybe your shoulder's lagging behind a little bit. Maybe your rotation is funky. You lose a mile an hour in a lot of different places, and so that's why they said it's been hard to nail that down and truly get Rowe right. And
so what you're saying is this offseason, tread.
Probably. Yes.
But I say that in jest,
because
right? That's probably
a
very encouraging thing, because it's not that it's all gone. It's not that he's done.
No, it's
and the
not
arm's
the arm.
blown. It's just mechanics.
It's a mechanical thing, and it's just losing like a little bit of velocity here, a little bit of velocity there. Now, I know this. I think this is public. I think I'm okay to talk about this. So when they took Rota Tread, they had him throwing off of a force plate. What a force plate does is it measures how hard you are pushing off of a mound. That's useful information to have if it is, the thing that they said, which is that you're losing a mile an hour here, you're losing a mile an hour there. Knowing in detail, how well you're doing this, how well you're doing that is big. I would like to see them not have to take guys to treads to use that.
Right. I'm with you. But
There's a way to get this stuff done in house that I think that they can improve on.
that's absolutely fair. But it all means at least get it done. However you find out to do it,
Yeah,
get it done.
the important part there is that they get row right. Everything else is just semantics.
Right. Because you can't.
And it's the same deal with Ortiz, really. Because
Yeah.
his velocity's down to, I mean, there's a lot of guys with velocity issues this
Right.
year.
Yep. No, I'm with you. So that's encouraging news. I guess that's what I put it to it. That is encouraging.
I would classify it as encouraging statements on a very worrisome situation, because I'm really worried.
But I think I shouldn't say a lot, but I was worried, but you're also worrying because is that arm done?
Yeah, no,
Based
I
on
think
maybe there's less of that and it could be worked and fixed. You just got to find the people to do it.
also just to put aside, I don't know where they've been telling people to throw less hard is coming from, but I asked about it back in June. I asked about it again, this weekend. Nothing. It's positively not something that is going on. So just to
All right. Well, then I guess we just got to find a way to get it back.
Yeah.
Cool stuff, Connor. Well, like I
Yep.
said, really appreciate the conversation, all the
I look
insight.
forward
And
to doing
such.
this again, man. Because I don't know if I'll get out to a game again this year.
Yeah.
Because that 2 days in a row was really hard on me physically.
Right.
But if I can, I will. But I plan on trying to be there opening day for MLB. But
Well,
we'll
cool.
see.
Well,
We'll see.
so we'll definitely going to do it again. So, with that said, appreciate everyone for watching, and we'll see you guys later.
Peace.
Bye bye.
Hey, you all, thank you for watching. I know we try to provide the most entertaining content that we can, and we'd love to spread it to as many people as possible. So I know it doesn't seem like a lot, but if you could take the 5 seconds to like this video and subscribe to the page, it helps out so much more than you know. Thank you, and let's go Bucks.